Welcome everyone to Know Your Voting Rights webinar for people with disabilities. We're glad you're here today. This webinar is being recorded, and at the end of the webinar, I'll be emailing everybody the PowerPoint and some resources so that you can have that for reference. I would like to introduce my coworker, Melinda Elliott. Well, Families Help Families. She's going to talk to us briefly about LACAN. And then after that, I'll introduce Dr. Ashley Volion, and we'll continue with our presentation. Go ahead, Melinda. Sounds like you're muted.
Yep. As soon as it comes up on the screen telling you you're muted now. Anyway, my name is Melinda Elliott. I am the LACAN team leader for Region 5. LACAN stands for Louisiana Council's Advocacy Network. We're a grassroots group of moms and dads, people with disabilities, professionals, people that care about people with disabilities. We work on systems change in the form of legislative advocacy. We are actually putting together our legislative agenda now, so it's not too late to have input on the legislative agenda. You can contact me at the Families Helping Families Southwest Louisiana office. But things we've worked on in the past, like the April Dunn Act, which allows everybody to have a diploma. So we work on special education issues. And then we work on issues around home and community-based waivers. So like the NOW waiver, the supports waiver, the row waiver, children's choice, and things related to that. We let's see, we've done things like worked on incontinence supplies last year, I worked on the open meeting law. We worked on LAPI, which is programs in colleges and universities for people with developmental disabilities, starting them. We worked on funding for Families Helping Family Centers. But we're open to suggestions. Education is a bit tricky because sometimes it is something that's already in the law, and it's figuring out how to get school systems maybe to do the things that they're supposed to do. But one of our education specialists at Families Helping Families could help you do that. There are 9 of me. We cover all 10 regions. So there's a team in each region and then a team across the state. Really, when you sign up, you're signing up to get emails, and you're going to learn a lot about the disability system. Hopefully, you're going to want to tell your story. I have lots of opportunities for you to tell your story. Every year I have a round table where we invite legislators, and let's see, we do legislative visits. Some people go to Baton Rouge and tell their story. But anyhow, Wallace has dropped the link in the chat box. Does it cost anything to join? And you can be part of the movement. And if anybody has any questions, just hit me up in the chat. Thank you, Wallace.
Thank you, Melinda. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Ashley Volion with Disability Rights Louisiana. And welcome, Ashley, and thank you for you being with us to talk about voting rights for people with disabilities. Are you there, Ashley? We seem to be having some technical difficulties.
She was, and then we lost her.
Okay. Hopefully she can get back on in a few minutes. And like I said earlier, we're gonna share with you resources and things from this webinar so that we can send it out to you. So I'm gonna pause the recording and until she gets on shortly. And I apologize for the difficulty. Hello,
Sorry,
Dr. Ashley Volion. We're glad you're with us.
thank you.
Um,
Sorry about that. I had technical difficulties.
and she's with Dr. Ashley Volion is with Disability Rights Louisiana, and she's our guest speaker today. That's going to talk to us about voting rights for people with disabilities. Take it away, Ashley. Thank you for being with us.
Okay, thank you again. I apologize for. We're going to talk about voting accessibility for people with disabilities, and this is going to include accessibility in any of the process for voting. So that'll be absentee ballots, early voting, or voting on election day. And before I get started, I just want to mention to everyone that I like to do these presentations in a conversational format. So if anyone has any questions for me, feel free to stop me and let me know. So we have voting accessibility rights due to the Help America Vote Act. And what this means is that eligible citizens have the right to register to vote. All voters have the right to an accessible polling place. All voters have the right to cast their ballots privately and independently. And every polling place has to have at least one accessible voting machine. And you must be able to safely enter and exit the polling site. As a person with a disability, you have the right to assistance in the voting process, and you have the right to choose how you vote, whether that be in person on election day or during early voting or through a mail-in ballot, which I'll explain later. So, why does voting matter? Voting matters because often people with disabilities get overlooked. But when we come together, we can make a change. So, what this means is, in my heart, I believe that people with disabilities don't get overlooked out of malice intent, but they get overlooked because people don't think they know people with disabilities. And if they don't have our experience, they won't know what we need. So we must make our issues known to those in power. And I just wanted to point out an example for you guys. According to a report from the Center for American Progress, nearly 62% of voters with disabilities cast a ballot in November 2020, compared to only 56% in 2016. So this was a great increase. Among 108 million voters without disabilities, 10.2 million live in a household with a person with a disability. And the common reason expressed for not registering to vote among people with both disabilities and not was a lack of interest in elections or politics. About 1/4 of people with disabilities gave permanent illness or disability as a reason for not being registered. So people just don't understand that they have rights to accessibility. So, who is registered to vote? I mean, who is eligible to vote? Those 18 years old or older, you have to be a resident of Louisiana and a citizen of the United States. You have to live in the state and parish where you're registered to vote. And you must not be under the order of imprisonment or a conviction of a felony. However, if you have been released from incarceration for 5 years, you can register to vote, even if you're still on probation or parole. And you must not be under the judgment of full interdiction or limited interdiction with suspension of voting rights. So, a common question that I get is, if I am eligible, how do I register to vote? You can either go online to the Go Vote website, in person to any voter or registrar's location. You can do it by mail at the link below, or any nonprofit such as Disability Rights Louisiana. And this is my contact information, which I'll leave in the chat as well if you guys need more information or help. I am more than willing to assist. So, I just wanted to show you guys where you go to register to vote online. So to register to vote, you go to the voter portal at voterportal.sos.la.gov/voter registration. And then it'll take you to this site. You just go through and answer these questions. There is one thing I wanted to point out. They do ask you for a driver's license number, but if you don't have that, that's fine. Still press next and leave that blank. So, how can you cast your ballot? Again, on election day. And for this election coming up, polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You can do it through early voting. That's usually 14 days before the election, or through a permanent absentee ballot by mail program. When it comes to the absentee ballot program, there is a permanent absentee ballot program for people with disabilities here in our state. People with disabilities and those 65 years old or older can register for the permanent absentee ballot program. Ballots are automatically sent to you by email through an email secured link, or if you want them, they'll mail it out to you. Now, with this, it doesn't mean that once you're signed up, you have to vote absentee ballot. No, you still have your choice. But they'll keep sending you an absentee ballot until your ballot comes back under Livable. And you can sign up through the Go Vote website as well. And like I said before, I can help you with any of that. So I like just to show people the Go Vote website because it's my favorite tool that the state of Louisiana provides. And they either have a website or a mobile app. But I am old school and I like the website because I can print out my ballot from my computer. Now you could do the same thing with a phone, or whatnot. But I'm gonna tell you how to get on to the website. So there's a lot of different ways that you could get on the website, but my way that I do it, that I find less complicated, is you just go to Google, you put in find my polling place, Louisiana, and then the voter portal is the first thing that should pop up. And then from here, you click search by voter. After that, they'll ask you for a few pieces of information. Your first name, your last name, your zip code, as well as the month and year you're born. After that, click submit. And then when we get to here, you'll see a whole bunch of information that you can find on the site. We have my sample ballot. We have your voter registration card and a whole bunch of other links. What I like to use, sorry you guys, my voice is going up today. What I like to use is the sample ballot because it'll show you exactly what's on your ballot and you can make your choice that way by looking at it, making your choice, and then bringing it into the voting booth that day. I mean, not that day, but when you go to vote. So, a big thing that I often get asked is how do I find candidates I trust? So oftentimes organizations will do candidate surveys. And right now, I was just telling Wallace that for Disability Rights Louisiana, did gubernatorial interviews for people with disabilities on our YouTube site, which I'll send to Wallace so he can send out to all you guys. Search the internet for information from groups you trust. Talk to people you trust. And also look at their voting records and position statements. And also, different news sites will do candidate profiles as well. So the three people that I refer people to when looking up information are the Public Affairs Research Council Guide, the League of Women Voters, and the Power Coalition. They'll usually do a breakdown of the amendments that are on the ballot as well as some of the candidates sometimes. But you might ask, all this information is good and fine, right? But I don't know what I'm entitled to. I know before doing these presentations, as a person with cerebral palsy, I didn't know what I was entitled to. But these are just a few of the things. You can bring, or they have, magnifying glasses to magnify the material. There are audio voting attachments for all the machines. So this will read to you your ballot. The voting machines can be lowered or heightened depending on your needs. People with visible disabilities can go to the front of the line, or those with a current mobility impairment card. And if you did not bring someone with you, a poll worker can assist you in the voting process. People with disabilities have up to 20 minutes to vote. And voters can bring their own signature tools, headphones, and flashlights. In order to receive assistance, you must sign or make a mark on a statement saying that you need assistance in order to vote. The person assisting you must also sign the statement. And again, if you don't bring someone, a poll worker must provide you with assistance. So, just a few important dates. And after this, I want to take questions, but just a few important dates. The deadline to register to vote is on the 23rd. Early voting begins on the 30th through October 7th. The deadline to request a mail-in ballot is October 11th, and the deadline for the ballot to be received is October 13th. So, and just to make you guys aware, today is National Voter Registration Day. So I know this presentation was kind of short, so I want to take your questions and comments now. And thank you so much.
If you have a question for us, you can use the chat box. Or if you would like to talk, you can let us know by raising your hand during the chat or something, or whatever it is. And then we'll let you talk, or we'll figure out a way to try to let you talk if we can.
Yes. And Wallace will be sending this information as well.
And there is a question in the chat, so I'm going to read it.
There it is. Okay.
It says, parents have asked, do their adult children with DD need to take certain competency tests to vote?
No, they do not. As long as they're not under full interdiction.
Okay. And then somebody else posted great information that's shared. I know personally for me with a disability that my experience, a lot of times it's easier in my area to vote early because the location might be easier for me to get in and out of at the early voting, or rather than my polling place. The polling place may be a little further, of a walk from my car sometimes, and I
Mhm.
could park closer where there's early voting. So physically with a disability, sometimes registering to vote early can help. And I also know from early voting or when I'm voting on the actual voting day that because of my physical disability, they have let me cut in line because I can't stand very long. And so it does help, if they poll worker sees that you have difficulty walking or mobility issues, they do let you cut in line. So that's a tremendous help when you can't stand very long.
Yes. I just seen two more questions in the chat. Um, so just to answer this question, someone said, can I assist my 18-year-old autistic son in the voting booth? And yes, you can if he picks you as his person to assist him. And then my next question that I got was teenagers who do not have a driver's license can register to vote. What identification can they show to register? So a state issue ID, a special ID. So the IDs that say they have a disability. They can even bring in a letter from agencies like Social Security. So anything that can confirm identity.
And one thing I know or noticed or been helpful, if you know you're going to need someone to assist in the voting booth, you can take care of that beforehand. You can get with your parish voters registrar's office and say, hey, I know I'm going to need assistance in voting. What do I need to do so that I can have that? And then it could be, if I'm right, Ashley, it could be identified in the book where you sign that you're going to need assistance so they know.
Yes, sir. So when you register to vote, there is an actual question that asks if you need assistance in voting. So if you mark that, it will be in the book that you sign.
So preparing ahead of time does make things easier. And it says, let's see, there's another question. On registering or voting days, what do you, no, I'm sorry, let me start over. On registering or voting days, what do you do if you aren't allowed to register or to vote because you have a visible disability?
No one should ever tell
I
you
believe
you're
it
not
froze,
allowed to.
Wallace. So the question is on registering or what to do if you aren't allowed to register or vote because you have a visible disability.
Well, they aren't allowed to tell you whether or not you're allowed to register. That is an infringement of your rights if you don't have an interdiction when it comes to voting. So in that case, I would say call Disability Rights Louisiana, and I'll put a number into the chat.
Yeah, that's a hotline that y'all do every election day, right,
Yes,
Ashley?
we do a hotline, but I'll also provide our regular number as well. Because it goes to the same thing.
Okay, I could go ahead and type it.
Okay. Our
And
number,
it's 1-800-960-7705.
yes.
Disability Rights Louisiana. Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I know this can become really complicated.
And in your PowerPoint, though, where you mentioned about the League of Women Voters and the research, the those are active links, right?
Yes, but I don't, the last I looked, their breakdowns don't come out until the end of the month. So they're not quite ready.
Okay. Because those are good resources. And it's the Research Council, that was one, right?
Yes, the
League of Women Voters, and I forget the other one.
and the Power Coalition.
Power Coalition. I look to those places for information about the amendments, to help with understanding of that. Sometimes it's hard to understand the verbiage. And then I also ask my friends and other coworkers, and what does this mean? The verbiage, because I get confused.
And honestly, I do the same thing. So I got a question about what is the deadline to vote by absentee ballot. So, are you talking about registering for an absentee ballot or turning in your ballot in?
She says registering.
Oh, registering. So that for that program, um, in order to do that, it is on the 11th, October the 11th at 4:30 p.m.
And all of these deadlines are on the Secretary of State's website, right?
Yes, they are, and they're all on the PowerPoint that you'll be sending as well.
And in the app, I believe the GoVote app I think it shows that as well, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. So
The-
either the website, the GoVote app, or the PowerPoint will show all the deadlines.
Because and for me, another helpful tip is to use the GoVote app to get a sample ballot. And then I could look at that ahead of time before I actually go vote. And then that sample ballot will let me choose what I want to vote for. That way I don't have to read everything the actual day. I could just select what my sample ballot says.
Right. And I actually do that for myself because I hate being in the voting booth not knowing what I'm gonna do because I get really nervous. So I do that for myself when it comes to um when it comes to voting and things like that.
Okay, they're asking for a link in the chat. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna
I'm
put
gonna
the link
copy
in
and
there.
paste. Yeah.
Now, this is not the sample ballot. This is where you can go to find out information about elections and voting.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, Dr. Ashley, the sample ballot isn't always ready until a certain period, right?
The sample ballot is available right now because I received the absentee ballot sometime last week. So it is ready to go.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
and at this website you can find all the dates and the sample ballot. So I'm sending you the Go Vote website right now, the voter portal. Oh, Wallace, you just sent it. Never mind. Wallace is a step ahead. And this is the voter portal. Okay.
These are really, really good resources. Thank you for sharing this with us.
No problem. And thank you to everyone that came out today, because this is really important, especially in the times we live in, just to get your voice heard.
Anybody else have any other questions? We don't mind.
Yeah, I love questions.
Or if you want to share something about your voting experience, maybe that might help someone. And again, if you need assistance with on the day of voting or what have you, you can always talk to a poll commissioner or what do you call them? A
A poll worker.
poll worker, and then they could help you. And if you are still getting stuck or if they're not understanding, you can call the hotline.
Yes,
The Disability
please.
Rights Louisiana.
That's what we're there for. So please call us.
And we're going to share these resources with you after the webinar ends too. So,
Yeah. And we want to know if there's any issues or anything like that.
is it called Voters Hotline? Is that what y'all call it, Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm typing this right now. And so when our webinar ends, I can send it to everyone. And if you're getting this recording later and you need information, about voting or voting rights for people with disabilities, you can contact your local Families Help and Family Center in the area in which you live, and they'll be glad to get you information, or you can contact me at Families Helping Families of Southwest Louisiana. And my name is Wallace Johnson. I don't know if I've actually said that in the beginning, but we'll be glad to help you get information to you or help you if I can't answer your question. Dr.
So,
Ashley Volion is able to do that as well.
so Wallace, I did get another question. It says, what you said get marked on registering to get help. Please repeat. What part would you like repeated? You can say it out loud if you'd like.
I mentioned where if you knew you need assistance or to vote, like if you know you're going to have someone go with you in the voting booth, that if you get with your registers of parish registers of voting office to get with them to set that up, and then
Or
they can prepare that so that when the book is done for where you just when you go vote, you sign a book saying who you are. Well, in that book is where, if I'm right, they know you need assistance because it's by your name.
you are, but you don't even have to go down to the voter registered office. You can just mark that on your registration if you do it online.
Okay, so and while you're registering to vote, you can indicate that on your voter's registration, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a good question.
That is a good question. A very good question.
And it's often good to repeat some of these things because sometimes you might not catch it the first go around. And sometimes me hearing it the second time I go around, I understand better.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm glad that they're asking even repeat questions because that helps
no.
me.
And I use the PowerPoint as my little cheat sheet all the time, and I'm the one that put it together.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, you're able to raise your hand. There's a person thanking us for the presentation. So we'll wait just a few more minutes just to
Yes.
make sure, because we want to allow ample time for people to chat, type, and to raise their hand. Because we want to see in case you have a question. We don't want to miss any. And you think of questions after this webinar, you can feel free to contact me at Families Helping Families or Dr. Ashley Volion with Disability Rights Louisiana. And
I'm
we'll be
saying,
glad to help you with any questions you think of later.
and I'm putting my email address into the chat.
And there's also going to be a recording to this webinar on the Families Helping Families of Southwest Louisiana YouTube page. Once I get that set up in the next couple of days, so you can use this as a resource. And then I'm going to also include Dr. Ashley Bolion's contact information with the information that I send out, so y'all can have it.
Yes, please do.
All right. Here's another. I like how you'd get in front of the line for sensory issues of what to say. I'm not quite sure if I understand that. Is it a question you're asking?
You don't have to say anything, just make your way up to the front. And if someone asks you anything, just tell them you have a disability and show them your ID card.
And that's another point too, early voting is sometimes there's smaller or less crowds or less interaction. So if someone does have sensory issues, you might want to try early voting to see if early voting might work
And you
rather
might
than the actual day.
Yeah, and you might also the permanent absentee ballot program is a good backup option as well. So let's say you don't have a ride to the polls and you thought you would, you can still vote through your absentee ballot. So that's always a good program to sign up for, just as a backup plan. Because remember, just because you're signed up doesn't mean you have to vote that way. So you can still go vote on election day if that's what you choose, even if you have a ballot mailed to you.
So you're saying if I have a mail-in ballot, I still can go vote in person if I don't mail that in?
Right. So if you had one mailed out to you, but if you say I just want to go in person and I don't want to mail it in, then you can still go vote in person. It's fine. But you can't vote twice. So you can't send in your mail-in ballot and vote in person. You have to choose, but you're not locked down to mailing it in. Does that make sense to everyone?
I believe so. And there are people commenting, yes, it does. Yeah,
Okay, good.
good. Thank y'all for letting us know and for providing wonderful questions. And thank you, Dr. Ashley, for providing information to the question. And so if nobody else has any questions, we're going to end the recording and end the webinar.